His friend asked him what inspired him to write the creed. Tiffany referred to the words in the name: future, farmers, America. He said, "There is enough inspiration in each word to call forth the highest hopes, the deepest concern, the profoundest regard, the strongest determination to carry forward the ideals, never realized in full, but without which the farmer would remain forever the man with the hoe." I want to tell you something of what I know about the circumstances behind the writing of the Creed of the Future Farmers of America by my father, M. Tiffany. I was only 3 years old in 1928 when the Creed was written. I've been able to draw upon what he said and wrote about it. I've also been able to put the Creed into some historical perspective, illustrated by pictures from our family album. He came to the writing of the Creed with 7 generations in America before him, 7 generations of farmers. His father, Duane Tiffany, was born in 1854 on a Pennsylvania farm. He moved to Linden in eastern Kansas, where M. Tiffany was born in 1883. His childhood memories were rich in the details of life and work on the farm in the 1880s and 90s. This is the experience that came into focus that summer of 1928 when Tiffany wrote the Creed of Future Farmers of America. That creed was part of the background for many of my father's concerns about what was happening in the field of agriculture and his own interest. He was getting ready to go to the FFA convention. He was preparing an exhibit, and he got a brainstorm and said, here we're trying to promote this idea of ag education and to serve the needs of the kids that are growing up in rural America. The idea struck him that he would write what inspired him, what his hopes were for teaching. He put those down on paper and put them on a big placard and had it on exhibit at the annual conference in 1928. Apparently that made a hit because then in 1930 they adopted it as their official creed. There's a history of ups and downs on that farm in Linden, Kansas. As I recall, there are stories of the bottom dropping out of the market and how you get along with bare minimum. Survival is difficult for a family farm. It was hard work, but he never lost track of the significance of that hard work. There was a corn cob that he had in a glass case on his bookshelf. It was an ear of corn from his father's farm. He kept that as a kind of a symbol of his interest in agriculture and his experience working on that farm. It was a kind of a mystery attached to that ear of corn in this glass case. And it had something to do with his father. He had this ear of corn and he hung it up on the porch, let it dry as a souvenir of that effort. And my father was given that to take home with him. He put it in this glass case, and that was his memento of his own work growing up on that farm. It seemed to be symbolic of tradition. My father talked about 7 generations of farmers. That shows you the rich vein of family life and the historical perspective that he brought to writing the creed. His bachelor's degree from Baker University in Kansas was in the classics rather than a science degree. You can see that coming out in the creed, and he has this broad perspective of really getting at what is important. He was an idealist. His education gave him the opportunity to really make the most of the insights. He was in the Army in World War I. And after he got out of the Army, he decided to get a master's degree in agricultural education. He came to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He went on to combine his interests in the science of agriculture to his historical perspective on the classics. He traveled all over the state in a Model T Ford. That's how he met with the teachers and discovered what their needs were and what the students were needed. He was trained in science and believed in practicing science, and then practical level on the doing it every day. He had a respect for craftsmanship. He didn't limit his work with the high school students to meeting them there in the school classroom. He liked to go out on the farms, to visit the farms where the students were growing up and working, to see what they were doing, to be there and to see the equipment that they were using and see the results. That seemed to be more meaningful, to better context for carrying out the education that he wanted to do. My father was a very practical fellow, and he was skeptical of glibness. He had a respect for critical thinking. If he encountered nonsense, why, he would deal with it with good humor more often than not. He would have strong feelings and would let you know what he thought about what seemed to be a patent foolishness. If the creed of the future farmers is an expression of faith worthy of so vigorous an organization, it must be more than a part of a prescribed ceremony. It must be an active force of thought working its way through the mind of everyone who makes its words his own. I hope the creed is viral enough to engender such a response.